Hello explorers, thanks for joining us again and welcome back to another exciting and informative video on our YouTube channel. If you are joining us for the first time, we want to thank you for watching. In this episode, we shall be charting the course of Africa's aviation sector. Why African countries should be very concerned with regards to the aviation sector at the moment. Looking at competition coming from Western airlines that are beginning to eat into Africa's market. As Africans transform over the years, a growing middle class, increasing continental integration and huge economic potential all provide reasons to be optimistic about the future of Africa's aviation sector. Yet, many governments still see the industry as a cash cow or point of national pride. If you consider this, while Africa accounts for 20% of the world's landmass and is home to nearly 17% of the population, its aviation industry represents only 3% of the global market. In 2018, the sector contributed over $80 billion to the continent's gross domestic product, supporting 6.9 million jobs. Yet, compared with other continents, aviation in Africa lacks the terms of traffic, capacity, connectivity. Globally, the industry is entering what is expected to be its 11th consecutive year of growth. African airlines, however, together registered losses of over $200 million looking at figures of 2019. Given the current economic, demographic and geographical trends, Africa stands as the last frontier of commercial aviation, and the market trend is showing that there is a set to expand over the next several years. A combination of political economic decisions, changes to policy and regulatory framework, and global sectors and factors will shape this particular growth trajectory. If you consider the growth drivers, the African continent's aviation industry has gained substantial momentum in the late, even despite the financial losses after the overall failures of the 1990s Yamoussoukro decision, when 44 African countries agreed to remove regulatory barriers. The single African air transport market known as SAATM was launched in 2018, bringing a new commitment to liberalization of the sector, a flagship project of the African Union.
As a first step, we launched the single African air transport market January 2018 as a first project of Agenda 2063 to be launched.
Until a few years ago, almost every time you wanted to fly from one side of Africa to the other, you would have to go via Europe.
If air transport were to be liberalized amongst them, an additional 155,000 new jobs will be created. 1.3 billion will be added to the GDPs of the 12 countries, and it would make travel much more easier, cost-effective, and make it competitive.
SAM, as it's abbreviated, aim to create a single unified air transport market on the continent. So far, 28 countries have committed to the agreement, representing more than just 80% of Africa's aviation market. 10 of those have already implemented all of the concrete measures envisaged by the SAM. Looking forward, however, despite these important players, including countries like Uganda and Tanzania, as well as some Nigerian airline operators, have been resisting liberalization, claiming that increased competition on what they consider as an even playing field will benefit consolidated airlines to the detriment of those different carriers. Experience suggests that while the liberalization of air market does not come without collateral damage, it has an overall positive impact for the industry. The economy in generally encompasses in particular factors specific to African schools, accelerate positive effect to implementation of African Continental Free Trade Agreement, the AFCFTA, the ongoing adoption by several countries of less restrictive visa policies, the possibility also creation of an African Union passport aimed at facilitating the free movement of people across the different continental borders, the Africa's fast-growing tourism market. As of 2018, the African tourism industry grew by 5.6%, the second fastest rate in the world. For comparisons, if you look at the global average, growth rate was just over 3.9%. If you are new to this channel, we will encourage you to subscribe and share our videos with your different network. If we look at the facts and figures considering the African aviation market data, with over 92 million passengers in 2019 year, Africa accounted for just 2.1% of global passengers traffic according to IATA in 2019 figures. International tourism arrivals into Africa increased by just 7% in 2018, totaling over 67 million people. The continent is home to about 731 airports, 320 of which international, and just over 419 airlines. Africans can afford around 1.1 air tickets per year. On average, significantly fewer than in Latin America, which is just over 5.4%, and North America at 33%. If you look at those different figures, passenger distribution in African airlines, just over 51.5%, intercontinental and also 27%, intra-African at just over 22%, domestic, so to look at different areas. 10 airlines that including global carriers that operates to and from 7 African cities account for 80% of Africa's aviation market. Out of the Africa's 10 most lucrative air routes, only 2 are operated by the African Airline. South African Airlines in Johannesburg, Cape Town, and also the TAAG in Luanda, Lisbon. The most profitable route, which amounts to just over $837 million, is Johannesburg, Dubai, operated by Emirates. Africa's busiest airport by passenger flow are Johannesburg, Cairo, Cape Town, Addis Ababa, Casablanca, Algiers, Nairobi, Lagos, Tunis, and Durban. Ethiopian travel and tourism market grew just 48% looking at 2019, the largest increase of any country in the world that particular year, based on World Trade and Tourism Council's figures. Ethiopia recently became the biggest transfer hub for long-haul travel to Africa, overtaking Dubai. Ethiopian Airlines flies to 58 destinations in Africa. By 2035, the new Bugesera International Airport in Rwanda is expected to serve more than 14 million passengers annually. Benin, Burkina Faso, Cape Verde, Ghana, Mozambique, Niger, the Republic of the Congo, Rwanda, Gambia, Togo have already implemented the SAATM's 8 concrete measures. This is very important if you consider the headwinds that the continent of Africa is considering transforming its aviation sector. However, the prospect for an open skies and thriving aviation industry remains both distant and fragile. Many African countries' aviation sector are characterized by protectionism policies, infrastructural gaps, financing constraints, and regulatory restrictions. Several governments consider the protection of national airlines a political priority, while other states see aviation more as a source tax revenue than an engine of economic growth. Moreover, African companies face specific competitive disadvantage that prevent them from expanding their market access, including safety bans imposed by external regulators, inadequate infrastructure, and high operating costs. Furthermore, African countries are particularly vulnerable to potential effects of unexpected economic political shocks like the war in Ukraine, the coronavirus, and other pandemic issues like Ebola and other things which will affect travel. According to figures of African development banks, as of 2019, fuel, which accounts for 20% to 40% of airlines' operating costs, the airline fees in Africa are just 20% more expensive than those in Europe, while maintenance and commercial costs are twice as high on average. Indirect operating costs such as leasing charges are often higher to reflecting perceived security risk. If you look at different facts and figures, despite the sector's potentials, there is significant uncertainty surrounding the demand for air travel in Africa, which may scare off potential investors. According to data from the International Air Transport Association, the IATA, African airlines have an average load factor percentage of seat filled of just 71%, well below the global figures of 81.2%. For most Africans, flying remains too expensive, while many countries have high risk profiles due to the protection for security shocks and political instability. If you are new to this channel, we will encourage you to subscribe and share our videos with your different network. If you look at providing more expensive lift, with the exceptions of the Ethiopian Airlines, African nation flag carrier are not profitable. South African Airways has not generated profit since 2011 and has received a bailout of about $1 billion. As of 2019, Kenyan Airways registered net losses estimated at more than $75 million and is undergoing a painful restructuring process which has happened. However, several countries including Uganda, Tanzania, Zambia, Senegal and also Ivory Coast are receiving or expanding their national flagship carrier. The rising star of African aviation is the state-owned Ethiopian Airlines. The company has made an extraordinary comeback, becoming the continent's largest carrier by passenger, fleet and revenue. This growth was spurred by Ethiopia's Vision for 2025 plan, which included a huge investment in several bilateral deals with other carriers, visa relaxation policies, and its expansion of the Bole International Airport. If you look at the large global players that may determine the future of African aviation market, which African countries have to wake up to also compete in different areas. Ethiopian Airlines and large global players, especially the three Gulf carriers, Turkish Airlines, may also determine the future of the African aviation market, either by action or by inaction. Ethiopian Airlines expanded its footprint across Africa through strategic partnership, particularly acquisitions and also opening hubs throughout the continent. The company has stakes in several small African carriers, including Malawi Airlines, Zambia Airways and Askaya Airlines, a West African airline and carrier which headquarters in Lomé in Togo. Turkish Airlines, which benefits from its home country's geographic location and diplomatic relations, has also established a significant network on the continent. It flies to more than 56 destinations in Africa and is the only non-African airline that flies to Somalia. The Gulf carrier, Emirates, Qatar Airlines and Etihad Airways have all expanded their presence in Africa in recent years through more flights and also new routes, which has created opportunities and competition against other African airlines. Emirates, for example, generate the most revenue for any company in African airspace, operating 4 of the 10 most profitable routes to and from the continent. In 2019, Emirates established an agreement with a Ghana-based African World Airlines to increase connectivity in West Africa. Qatar Airways, which flies to 21 destinations in Africa, is also expanding its footprint on the continent. Albeit more cautious, the company will not venture into startups until it declared that it will only invest in stable countries and in markets that guarantee a return on investment. The airline recently signed a deal with Rwandan government to acquire a 60% stake in the under-construction Bugesera International Airport south of Kigali, in a talk to buy 49% stake in Rwanair. As we plan to conclude this particular episode, in the coming years, the government will further liberalize Africa's aviation sector, leading to increased capacity, new routes and novel partnership. The process will generate winners and losers, but happening in Asia and Latin America, it will be beneficial for African airlines and also African economy. The continent has 16 landlocked countries, the lowest level of road and rail connectivity in the world, a series of emerging markets, and strong ambitions for regional economic integration. Estimated that air traffic in Africa will increase by 4.8% a year through 2038, according to Airbus figures. However, this may sound too optimistic, but in the long term, the sector will likely expand quickly on the back of economic growth, tourism, trade, and slow but steady rise of the middle class. This growth trajectory, however, will also compromise by all low resilience to external shocks. Even under the best case scenario, the coronavirus is expected negatively to affect the sector in short to medium term, as Chinese routes, vital for the company's operations across the continent of Africa, are suspended and tourism flow are unexpectedly going to decline. Looking at the different happenings in the country of China, the open skies is a win-win synergy for the continent of Africa. Liberalization will take place through a smooth and effective transition, leading to a mixed picture where gains will clearly outweigh losses. The successful implementation of the African continental free trade, increased integration of regional markets, and rising demands for air connectivity will also have a contribution in terms of significant growth in the African continent. Though some companies will not survive, some nations' carriers will enter into strategic partnership with global players following the Rwanda-Qatar model. Others will establish or expand codes, that agreement or first regional alliances to improve efficiency. In several countries, increased competitiveness will result in significant efficiency gains and also higher penetration of low-cost carriers. Looking at different areas, those developments will generate positive outcomes in the form of lower tariffs, increased connectivity, job creation, expansion of aviation sector, and services and investment in different areas. Despite the different turbulence, if you consider the African market, under this more likely scenario, the liberalization of the aviation sector will be a long, messy process, leading to large gains and heavy losses. Some African governments will refuse to give up control over the sector, keeping protectionism and regulation heavily taxed in place. Others will struggle to find investment. Due to its growth potential and widespread compliance with some, there will be fierce competition for market position. Due to geography, African carriers in the region may have an advantage over the Gulf carriers and other global companies. In East Africa, and despite Ethiopian Airlines' strong position, Rwanda will emerge as a regional hub, and Rwanda's gains will also have some impact and losses of national flag carriers in Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. In the medium to long term, this scenario of big winners and big losers could be reinforced by a difficult market worldwide, slow economic and weakening global trade, tougher restrictions on travel dictated by environmental and health concern, and high fuel prices will all have a significant impact on the sector in the region. We want to thank you for watching. If you are new to this channel, we want to encourage you to subscribe and check some of our informative video on this YouTube channel. Let us know what your opinion is with regards to this particular episode and how you perceived the aviation sector in the continent of Africa, and hopefully Africa can wake up to catch up with the market and also liberalize its network to grow its revenue and expand the continent in terms of connectivity and travel. Want to thank you for watching. We're looking forward to meeting you soon in our next episode. Have a good day. Bye-bye.